Hello, welcome back. First off, before I say anything else, I have to say thank you. Thank you so much to everyone for engaging the last video about my bedwetting experience. Thank you. The love has been great. I really appreciate. A lot of things have been reviewed. Like I've found so many people in my circle that have actually gone through this kind of experience, that have actually faced this kind of things. So it's been a lot of revelations, like, and I'm just so grateful that I took the bold step to make make that video. I'm just grateful and thank you for engaging. Without you, I would not have made this discoveries that I've made, in the past week. So thank you again. Today is a very special day. I did say that was not the end. We're having a Q&A today with a doctor friend of mine. Yeah, I'm so happy because I'm not alone today. You're not just going to be hearing my voice, you're going to be hearing more of her voice. I'm so grateful. I don't get to talk too much today. All right, so get your seatbelt on and be ready for the ride. It's going to be a very enlightening and insightful session. So prepare your mind for it. So get ready, and I will see you very shortly. Hi everybody. As I earlier mentioned, I'm not alone today. I've got my beautiful sister in the building. So I'm going to allow her to introduce herself. So over to you, sis. Tell us your name, what you do, and I know you're excited to be here today. So tell us how excited you are to be here today.
Hi, everyone. My name is Dr. Queen Bassi. I'm a medical doctor. I currently work in a mental health rehabilitation clinic, so I work with people who have mental health problems. Um, that's what I currently do. But yes, I'm excited to be here. When my sis told me about the topic and the questions, I just told her that, I knew I was going to be on this, and so it's interesting to talk about the topic that we have for you guys today. So I look forward to, and I hope you'll be able to learn something from this discussion once we're done.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Okay, just so we're not wasting any more time, I'm just going to dive right into our first question for today. So, the first question I'm asking you today is, can you just give us a general idea of what's your take on the topic of bedwetting? Like, how well do you think it's talked about, or what's your general take on the topic of bedwetting?
Okay, so pardon me, I'm going to be looking down a couple of times because I have some notes that I'm trying to refer to for the discussion. So, bedwetting is it's an issue that most people are ashamed to talk about, especially if it happens in an adult, because the general consensus is that once a child is potty trained, the child should be able to get up at night when they want to pee, or at least be able to control their bladder. So it's a topic that most people are ashamed to talk of. Like I said, if it's an adult situation, but I think that is something that people need to talk about when it happens, because there are a lot of factors that can contribute to bedwetting. And there's one thing I believe, that if people say it or talk about it when it happens to them, they can be able to find solutions to it instead of trying to hide it and then getting into the problems for a long time. So I'm not going to go into the reasons why it happened, because I'm sure we'll come to that later. But my opinion on bedwetting is that it's something that people shouldn't be ashamed to talk about when it happens to them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much for that. Such a fantastic answer. So moving on to the next question which I have for you today. Have you dealt with anyone like closely who has had to deal with this bedwetting issue? Have you had any personal experience as a doctor or even as a person with people who have had to deal with this bedwetting experience, and can you share it with us?
Yes, I have. So, as I mentioned earlier, the general consensus is that once a child is potty trained, which usually happens at age 2 or 3, depends on how the parents want to do it, the child should be able to stop bedwetting. So, I have cousins who, her child is like a year plus, and he's already stopped like bedwetting. But on the flip side, I have cousins who kept bedwetting until about the age of 18.
Oh, wow.
Then I also know somebody who kept bedwetting until the age of about 20 or 21, thereabouts. So it's variable for different people, and different people, and there are a host of reasons why some people stop, some people don't. So
Mm.
yes, I've dealt closely with people who have been bedwetting for like a long part of their life, and then um, I know what they had to, the measures they had to take to stop like actual bedwetting, like
Mm.
conscious, like unconsciously or consciously bedwetting. So yes,
Mm.
I've had personal experiences with people in that
Wow.
regard.
Wow. Fantastic. Wow. I shared my experience, and I think mine was till like 15 or 16, and now I'm here in 21, and I'm like, oh my days, 18, 21. I'm like, wow, people are really going through this, and wow, it's just a lot to take in for some people. Like, I always don't expect everybody to understand, because you have to really go through this thing for you to know.
Right, right.
Yeah.
And like I said, it's a thing of shame because a lot of people, the person I know who was bedwetting to 21 was so ashamed because, obviously she couldn't like go to like a friend's house for a sleepover because there's this
Mm,
fear, oh, what if I bedwet? I mean, at this age,
yeah.
obviously people would say, look at you, as old as you are, you're still bedwetting. She couldn't like have justifications or anywhere else that's not her bed because it's like everybody else would talk about it. So
Mm,
she just had to like live a life where she's by herself. I mean, and it took a while for her to be able to figure out what was wrong with her. And she had to go to like a doctor to ask questions and read stuff
mm,
online. And then she took some steps that helped her like stop bedwetting at that age. But it was a real struggle for her because you know the feeling of
mm.
when they say sleep with your eyes open, that was literally what
Yeah.
she did because
Mm-hmm.
you're in a party
I
with
can
people.
imagine.
It's late. You can't go home. You want to sleep, but you're scared to sleep because you're like, okay, what if I pee on this person? So, funny story. She told me
Mm.
something that happened to her one time. So she went to visit her uncle, and they had a newborn baby at the time. And she slept on the bed with the newborn baby, and she woke up and she had bedwetting. And out of fear, the next thought that could come to her mind was to roll the baby
To the
onto
side. Oh my
and then
days.
quickly change
Mm.
clothes, lie on the dry side of the bed, and then go back to sleep and hope nobody finds out. And I mean, it worked for the most part. People woke up and like, oh, the baby peed, blah, 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 blah. But then her uncle's wife called her and she goes, I know you're the one that bedwetted. And she's like, how did you know? And Dima said, well, when I went to change the baby's diapers, the inside was dry, but the outside of the baby was wet. So I'm like, there's no way that the baby will pee
Mm.
and
Yeah.
then the inside is dry, and she felt so embarrassed. I think that was what really pushed her to start seeking for like an active
Help.
solution to stop it because that was so embarrassing for her.
My
But
days.
luckily for her, the auntie didn't mention it to anybody. Just told her that she needs to find a solution to it, and then she started looking for a solution to her problems. And then last time I spoke to her, she told me that she's been able to, you know, find solutions. So I did ask her, for the purposes of this video, I did ask her to tell me some of the things she did, and she did tell me which I would share as we go on. So
Mm. Wow. Wow. That is. Wow, it is. We're all smiling, but it's not really funny when it's in the moment, because yeah, it's a lot, isn't it? And
it,
like I said in my prayer, I did say to people, we need to be kind, because you don't understand what people are going through. And I'm just grateful for her having an auntie that could, keep it to herself and say, you know what, this is embarrassing. I shouldn't be saying it to anybody. So I'm acknowledging to you that I know, but I'm not saying to anybody else that
I,
this is what it is. And we're just grateful for people like that who can be so understanding. Wow, thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, let's move on to the next question. The next question we have for you today is are there any misconceptions? By misconceptions, I mean, are there any myths? Let me use that word, myths, that people come up with as to around bedwetting. I'm going to give an example just so the question is clearer. If I was talking to one of my friends and I was like, oh, I'm going to talk on the topic of bed. And I was like, is bedwetting not when you sleep, you now dream, you have a dream that you are, those funny things that people say. But he was like, oh, it's not when you have a dream that you want to go to the toilet in your dream and then you don't stand up. I was like, oh my days, you know, the things people would say. And I just want us to clear the air. Are there any such misconceptions or any myths that people have created about bedwetting that you know of?
Yes, there are a lot of them. So I'm Nigerian and African, so I'm going to start with the most obvious one. People feel like when you bedwet, you have a spiritual problem.
Mm.
They feel
Mm-hmm.
like it's a spiritual attack. Well, so while that might be true, that's the most funny thing I've heard, because it's like they start telling you how somebody from your village is after you, and how they don't want you to get married. That's true. I mean, let's not discount the fact that, some of these things actually have a spiritual side to it, but
Mm-hmm.
people tend to overlook the fact that there might be just something, a physical component that's causing it, and they just tend to take everything spiritual. That's one myth. The second myth I've heard is that bedwetting is caused by deep sleep.
Mm.
That's really true, because even somebody who is half awake, half asleep can still bedwet. So
Mm.
it doesn't mean that when somebody bedwets, the person was so deep in sleep. Well, yes, somebody who is so deep in sleep could bedwet just because it's harder to arouse the person to go use the bathroom. It doesn't necessarily mean that anybody who is in deep sleep would bedwet, or the person that was why the person bedwetted. Another one is bedwetting is an emotional problem. That's also partially true. So while yes, sometimes emotions can play a role in you bedwetting, it's not always necessary. It's not always true that somebody who bedwets has an emotional problem.
Mm.
Another myth I heard is, you know how people say, oh, bedwetting will get better on its own. Like, oh, leave a child, when they grow older, they will stop. You just heard what I said of somebody who went all the way up to 21 and she was still bedwetting. So that kind
Yeah.
of person, if something is not done about it, she would probably have still been bedwetting, maybe till around 30, 35, who knows. Married to her husband, maybe that's if she would ever get married. Because a man might say, oh, you bedwet, I'm not going to marry you for that. We
Mm.
do crazy things these days. So while yes, it could go away with time, in some people it just doesn't go if some steps are not taken for it to go.
Mm.
So all these being said as myths, I'm gonna now link them to the facts. The fact is, 90% of the time, somebody who bedwets till an older age has a medical condition. It could be anything. It could be a host of things. It could be an infection.
Mm-hmm.
Could be that the person emotional responses, yes, play a role in bedwetting, because we heard of a story of a guy, a child who was, I think, 6 or 7 thereabout, and the child kept bedwetting. Now, before I say this story, there are some people who they stopped bedwetting when they were maybe 3 years or 4 years old, and then maybe at 6 or 7 they start again. Those are
Mm.
people who call secondary bedwetters. So theirs is not primary, because they stopped and then they started again. Now, in those people, there could be a traumatic life event or an emotional response to something that's making them start bedwetting again. So, like the story I was about to share of the boy he stopped bedwetting, and then at about 7, he started bedwetting again. And the parents were trying to find a reason, and they took him to the doctor. And then the doctor was asking questions like, has there been any changes in your life? And they found out that his parents were filing for a divorce. So that
Mm.
triggered some sort of response in the boy that made him start bedwetting again.
Mm.
So the doctor just advised the parents, try and fix what's going on in your family. That should help the boy psychologically, emotionally. And they did, and it helped him, and the boy stopped bedwetting. So sometimes, yes, it could be that there's an experience, a trauma, something that's making you, but that's a case for a secondary bedwetter. But for someone who never stopped bedwetting, who just from childhood you kept bedwetting up until an adult age, it could be that you have a fistula. A fistula is like when there's an opening between your bladder and your anus. So
Mm.
it's not so once urine fills up in your bladder, it just keeps coming out through that fistula. So you're not able to control it. It could be that somebody has an infection, urinary infection, and so your bladder is not able to hold urine. It could also be that the muscles of your that control your bladder to release urine and stop urine are not developed properly, so they're weak. So that way, once your bladder is full, no matter what you do, it just comes out. Even if you try to stand up to go pee, you find yourself just peeing on yourself. You don't have to be sleeping necessarily. So these are some of the things or the reasons why people still bedwet even at an older age. So going to the doctor and asking questions, they will tell you to run a lot of tests. They'll tell you to do a lot of things. That's one of the first ways to know if somebody, like, you can stop, like, if there's a reason, or to get the actual reason why a person is bedwetting at an older age.
Our next question would be are there any other medical conditions that seem to be that seems to have misconceptions, just like bedwetting? Like, are there any other conditions that people think or people just feel generally this should not be classified as a condition? Just the way I was saying, somebody was saying to me, is bedwetting a medical condition? Like, is it not when somebody's, and just sleeps and dreams and then they wee on the bed? There are other conditions like that that I feel are not really talked about. So are there any like that are easily misconstrued? Yeah.
There are a there are a host of other medical conditions that can be easily misconstrued, but I think the ones that come off the top of my head right now are mental health conditions, mostly.
Hmm.
Because I mean, now the world is becoming aware that mental health conditions are actually a real thing. But I know that in time past there were people who would not believe that, somebody could be anxious or somebody could be depressed,
Mm-hmm.
a real medical condition.
Yeah.
They would just see it as, oh, but why are you, I'm sorry, why are you down? Like, they would just try to, like, kind of overlook it, but it's actually a medical condition. um Something also as lactose intolerance, people feel like it's not a medical condition. you know Growing up, I heard a lot of people say, oh, anytime I take milk, my stomach, I feel like my stomach is setting me. And we never knew that was because those people were lactose intolerant. So now
Exactly.
need to be aware that, okay, this is actually a thing. So I can avoid that by taking things that don't have lactose in them. So that way I don't get sick. Um, that, and then there's another condition I'm trying to think about. Oh, I've forgotten the name off the top of my head, but I know there's something that just came to mind right now where it's a condition too that happens to people, and then when people see you, they feel like it's just a normal thing. There are a lot of diseases like that that people
Mm.
it's true. And then I mentioned it in the last question, which is the fistula. Now, where somebody has like a leakage in between the bladder and the opening of the anus, and they just continually keep, urinating. Somebody might misconstrue that as bedwetting, but this person actually has a medical condition, you know. And I also watched a video pertaining to this fistula of a lady who, she was very young. She got married at a young age, 15, and she got pregnant and she gave birth. And then in the course of giving birth, the strain caused that tear between her bladder and her anus.
Mm.
Kept
Mm.
dripping urine constantly. Now, people around her didn't know what it was, so they felt like at your old age, you're married, you're still bedwetting. So they kind of like quarantined her into a room, kept her there because obviously she's smelling. Nobody even took her to the hospital. She would walk around all day smelling of urine. Nobody wanted to associate with her. It was until a doctor met her and took her for some tests and said this thing can be corrected. So she went through a surgery and they were able to repair the tear that was formed between her bladder and her anus, and then she got better. So that's
Yeah.
something too that happened to, the lady. And there are a whole lot of other
Mm.
medical conditions that people think is something else, meanwhile it's actually something else that's entirely wrong with them. So, oh,
Yeah.
the common one which happens in the tropicals is malaria. People, the moment somebody feels like, oh, I have a headache, I have a fever, they think it's malaria.
Mm.
And then they don't even go to the doctor, they just go to the pharmacy and like, hey, can you give me anti-malaria? And I'm like, when I hear these things, I'm like, how do you actually know you have malaria? Because you treat something that you may not have, but then it could be some other thing. If you go to a hospital, they'll tell you, oh, no, it's not malaria, it's this. But here it's like, when somebody falls sick, headache, fever, oh, it's malaria. And I'm like, it may not be malaria though. Why? Your body could just be tired. You could just be stressed. So why
Yeah.
constantly treating yourself? Or this one is not a medical condition. It's more like the usage of like antibiotics. Something happens and the next thing, oh, take antibiotics. And I'm like, do you actually know why you're taking the antibiotics? You just feel like
Mm.
because it's fun to take, or like how, why? So
Wow, thank you so much for that. Yeah, you have things like gluten as well. When they say
Yes,
people need to eat gluten free,
yes.
yeah, gluten free
And the thing
food.
is, with gluten free is like lactose. You know, for people who can't eat gluten, when they eat gluten, their body kind of reacts to it. So they get like rashes all over. They get, for some people it's severe. They could become like unable to breathe and all of that. But for some people, it's just they see rashes on their body and then they feel like, oh, I just have small heat rash, and they rub powder on it, hoping that the heat rashes will clear. But then you don't know that you actually eating something you shouldn't eat.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, wow, thank you so much. I think the one that bothered me a bit when I was doing my project in during my MSc was the dyslexia and dyscalculia. I didn't even know there were different breeds to this dyslexia things and dyscalculia. You know, where you the dyslexia is if you have some people just have writing issues where
Hmm.
you're where you're so you think the child is dull, the child doesn't know. So it's like when the child speaks to you, you can tell the child is smart, but when they do any work,
Writing,
you
yeah.
see that, yeah,
That's
you
I
see
think
that the child,
I grouped all of that under the mental health category because all of
yeah,
those are can be classified under some form of mental health problems because I work with mental
mm,
health patients now, so I see them all the time. So it's like a child, you might think a child is dull or retarded, but the child just has a learning disability, or the child is dyslexic. And most of these people, what they require is like another thing too that is misconstrued, is still part of the mental health problems, is autism. A child
mm-hmm,
that's like socially awkward, he doesn't want to associate with people, and then you feel like all this child needs, the child is not confident enough. And so sometimes some parents will start pushing the child to go out more, to interact more, but then that's not what it is. The child is not intentionally saying, oh, I don't want to associate with people, but he just has autism. But I also understand,
mm,
because people don't want to go to the doctor to diagnose something, because there's this general saying of what you don't know can kill you. So they feel like, oh, the
mm,
moment they give a name to it, it's like, okay, now I know the name of what is wrong with me. But at the same time, when you give a name to something, then you know what to address. Because if you don't give a name to it, how do you know what you're addressing? Because you could just be beating
yeah,
the bush and just trying to figure things out. And it's like in medicine, something's wrong with somebody. You go to the doctor to run a test, and based on the organism that's found from the test, they know what drugs to give you to target that organism. So if you don't do the test, if we don't name the organism, we can be giving you a whole bunch of drugs and all of them don't work against that organism. But then you're taking drugs, you're not getting better
mm,
because we don't exactly know what it is we're looking for fighting against. So that's just the same way it is with most of these conditions.
fantastic. Thank you so so much. Wow, this is, well, I'm really enjoying myself talking to you today. It's just so enlightening and so insightful. Thank you so so much. Okay, so our final question for today to you would be, what, just advise us generally as a medical practitioner, as Dr. Barbs, advise us, what is your advice to us in terms of bedwetting and all of this medical conditions that people don't take seriously, and then also advise us as my sister in the Lord, which I know you are, as my Christian sister, as my firebrand sister. Advise us, what is your advice in terms of, the spiritual implications to all of this, so just advise us. Thank you.
Okay, so from a medical point of view, the first thing I would say is don't be afraid to go get tested. Don't be afraid to go get a checkup. Don't be ashamed to go get a checkup, because that checkup might just be what will save your life. Now, I understand the
Mm,
limitations, and depending on the country you are, for my brothers and sisters in the US, they may not want to go check up because it's crazy expensive, insurance rates are high, da 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 da. And then for those in Nigeria, they don't really trust that the doctors run the test properly and all of that. But still, go get tested. That's my advice medically. And once you get tested, it's not, another medical advice which is important would be avoid Google. Avoid Google, because Google is a doctor on his own. I've seen to Google, hey Google, I have a headache. What do I do? And Google says you have a brain tumor, and then they start freaking out. No, that's wrong. As a doctor, if you come to me and you tell me, oh, I read on Google that this, I'm never gonna take you serious. Because why are you coming to me? You read Google, so why are you coming to me? That's like, but jokes aside, avoid Google because Google will give you a whole lot of diagnosis, and you would be too freaked out to get the actual diagnosis of what's wrong with you. For bedwetting, which is what we came here to talk about today, I just want to say that medically, there is a cure for bedwetting. And for people who don't like to take medication, there are steps you can take to actually stop bedwetting if you don't want to take medication. Medication should be like a last resort. There's something I found out recently called an enuresis alarm. So I just found it out. It's like a device that you connect. There's a wet sensor and a dry sensor. So you connect the wet sensor into the underwear of the person, the part that the urine starts coming from first. You connect the wet sensor there, and then you put the dry sensor right here, close to their neck, and it has an alarm. So the idea is, if the person is sleeping and the person starts bedwetting, once that sensor gets wet, the alarms ring so loud that the person wakes up from sleep and goes to sleep. So that's how that enuresis alarm works. Now, there's success stories, the different brands, different types. People tried it and it works because as a person, if you're sleeping and that kind of alarm wakes you, at some point your body will just naturally want to say, okay, I don't like this feeling I'm getting where every time this happens, this happens. So your body wants to adjust and make sure that you don't get woken up like that. So over time, people just stop bedwetting. Um, that's one therapy you could use. You could also try manually trying to wake the child up or trying to wake the person up. But again, I don't think anybody has time to be not sleeping because they don't want you to bedwet. So the anyway alarm is just the best thing. And then, like I said, try to figure out if it's somebody who was bedwetting before and stopped and started again. Try to figure out what changes happen in the life of that person that makes the person start bedwetting again, and then try to solve the problem. So bedwetting medically for me is like a fruit. It's not the tree. So if there's something wrong with the fruit, most times you don't fix the fruit, you fix the tree. So if you see that this person is bedwetting, medical advice would be try to figure out what the tree is. Because once the tree is healthy, the fruit will be healthy. So if you fix the problem in the tree, the person might stop bedwetting. That's my medical advice. Don't be afraid to see a doctor. Don't be ashamed, and know that there's a cure and there's a solution for you. Now, as a Christian, I started by saying that everything that we do in this life has a spiritual side to it. So don't ignore the fact that there just might be a spiritual attack on your life. Again, I've heard a story of a lady who was bedwetting. She went to her pastor. She tried everything. It wasn't working. And she went to her pastor's wife. And the pastor's wife was praying with her and told her that, oh, this is a sign that somebody sent blah, 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 blah for her not to get married. Because they know that most men will not marry a lady who is bedwetting. So she went on a series of prayers, fastings, and all of that and all of that. And by the grace of God, she's married today. So she was able to break that. Was able to break that curse. So you can get some scriptures and pray over them, pray over them pray over them for yourself. Trust God and ask God. There's nothing that we ask God that He cannot heal. That He cannot heal us from. The one with the issue of blood, she went to the doctors. The doctors said, "We don't have a solution for you." And all she did was touch the hem of His garment. So you could be in a situation where you're saying that, "Oh, I've tried everything medically. I've been to the doctors. They've told me there's nothing wrong with me, but I still keep bedwetting." Maybe what you need to do is to touch the hem of His garment. Or if you are the type that, some people want to try the medical route first before touching the hem of His garment, but some people might want to touch the hem of His garment first. And that's where the guaranteed solution is to all of this, honestly. So if it just, I guess it just depends on the level of the person's faith and what you believe in. But I would say that there is a spiritual side to bedwetting, and it should not be taken for granted. As much as, yes, we try to promote, oh, go to your doctor, seek help. Jesus Christ is the greatest physician of all. So He's the one that gave the doctors the knowledge. So if you pray, trust Him, read the word, apply the word to your life, confess the word in your life, you would see miracles. Side note, there's this popular Pastor Mildred. She keeps talking about how she had PCOS. Doctors told her to give birth, and all of that. And what did it for her? She went from doctor to doctor to doctor to doctor. It wasn't working. And what did it for her was she said she sat down with her husband's Bible. She brought out all the scriptures on childbirth and fruitfulness, and she kept eating. She was like, she said she was taking like a medication, morning, afternoon, night. She would take it, and she did that for 5 years, 5 good years, and eventually
Mm.
today she's the mother of three healthy, beautiful children. What the doctors
Mm.
said could not happen. The Bible
Happen.
did it. God did it for her. So if you're in that situation, don't be ashamed. It's not. Don't be afraid. You can reach out to somebody that you trust, and again, be careful who you reach out to, because you might reach out to somebody that would embarrass you. Like the girl I was saying, that her auntie knew what happened, but the auntie chose not to embarrass her. That situation could have gone a different way. In some homes, they would parade you out, tell you to take the mattress outside, go dry it outside, so everybody sees
Mm.
the bed wetting. But the auntie chose to take the route of saying, I know what this is, and let's seek for a solution together. And that kind of gave her the confidence to get help. So know who you're talking to about it. Let it be someone that you trust, that you know that will not dampen your spirit or dampen your confidence.
Mm.
Let it be somebody that you know would help you to be able to find a solution to it. But there is a solution to it, and it's not something to be ashamed about.
Wow, thank you so much. It has been so amazing having you today. I'm so grateful. See, everybody needs to help me to celebrate Dr. Babs. She's actually supposed to be on a honeymoon and she took time out to do this for me. She amazingly got married. That's like 2 weeks ago already. Hey,
Yes.
sis, your marriage is already counting. It's like 2 weeks ago, and she took time out of her honeymoon to be here with us today and to bless us with this much wisdom. Wow, thank you so much, sis. Thank you so much. I appreciate all that you have done for us. I'm going to put you on the spot. If we do have people coming that want to speak to you directly, am I allowed, am I permitted to connect them to you to speak with you directly?
Yes, they can reach me on Instagram and Facebook. Um,
Mm.
my Instagram handle is DRQBABBS. I think that will be written on the screen. Um,
Yes.
and then my Facebook is Queen Dorin Ipe. Change in surname because I'm just married. So
Oh, Shay.
yeah,
Wait till we get there. Oh.
they can connect with me on Instagram. Instagram will be faster because I typically respond to Instagram messages faster than I do Facebook. So they can reach out to me on Instagram and Facebook, or they can send me an email, Dr. Queen Bassi, drqueenbassi at yahoo.com. I also respond to emails fast as well. So any of those means they can reach me through any of them.
Fantastic. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. All right, that brings us to the end of our Q&A today. I hope we've all enjoyed this session, because I have like, I wish I had all this when I was dealing with mine, and I'm so glad we are able to do this for people who are probably dealing with the same thing right now. And I know, as she has said, there's a solution for you. There's a solution for you. Don't be too embarrassed to speak up. There's a solution. Thank you again, Dr. Babs. We're so glad to have you. And we
Thank
hope
you.
that this will not be the last time we'll be doing something like this together.
Hope not. Definitely, you can always reach out to me. I'm here for to help people, and I really enjoy what SHCI is doing. For the community and for people at large. And I'm glad to be a part of this project. I'm glad to be on board with this. This is something, like you said, a lot of these things. If we had them when we were going through those challenges, we probably have been in a different place. But I trust that God has a reason why this is coming up now, and why the world is getting to hear this now. Not for us, but for posterity's sake. So
Yeah.
congratulations to SHCI. I love the work you're
Thank
doing. And
you.
I'm always glad to partner with you guys anytime. If you need me, just let me know.
Thank you so much. All right, then. We'll be saying goodbye to everyone at this point. Thank you so much for watching, and be sure to tune into our next episodes. And we have something interesting coming. There's so much more to do. Just subscribe, like, comment, turn on the notification button so you know when we have more videos for you. All right, bye everyone. Bye.
Thank you, sis.